Subsurface Instruments offers basically 3 models of pipe and cable locators. This model is called our PL1500. We do offer it in 2 options. It's a single frequency locator. We offer it in a high frequency at 83 kilohertz, and we offer it in a lower frequency at 8 kilohertz. Looks exactly the same, and we offer the same options for basically both locators. Then from there we go to our PL2000, which is a multi-frequency locator. It offers 3 active frequencies: 27 kilohertz, 8 kilohertz, and 0.5 kilohertz. On the low PL1500, we offer a variable 3-watt transmitter as well. If it's the 83 kilohertz, then it's a variable 1 watt. So with these models, you've got a transmitter, you've got a receiver. Transmitter transmits a signal, receiver looks for that signal. We have a few different ways of applying a signal, which we will get to in a little bit, but here are the accessories that come with the unit. With each unit, you get a set of red and black leads. This part plugs into the unit, black goes to ground, red goes to your conductor. Another way of applying a signal is by use of a 4-inch inductive clamp. The cord gets plugged into the transmitter, this connects into here, and you can just clamp around an object, and mainly used for telephone communication lines, cable TV, and electric. This is the ground stake that comes with both units. You want to get the ground stake in as far as possible. Grounding is a very important part when it comes to locating. Then we also offer sondes. Sondes are different frequencies, and we've got 2 different sondes here. This is a standard sewer sonde, which is a 512 hertz. That works with our PL2000 model. And then we also have an 8.125 kilohertz sonde, which will work with the PL1500 low model, and it will also work with our PL2000. Here we are, we're going to show you how to properly hook up and set your ground stake and align your equipment up for a proper direct connect with the PL2000. This is the multi-frequency locator. This is a locator that would be similar to a locator that when you call the one-call system, they would come out, locate your telephone, electric, gas lines. This is our multi-frequency, very good, very accurate, and yet very simple. So what we want to do is we want to hook our red and black leads up to our transmitter, just like the PL1500. It goes in just like that, push it in, make sure it's in all the way. Hook your black lead up to your ground stake. The ground stake should be approximately 10 feet away from maybe where you're hooked up at. And we're hooked up at this hydrant where our red lead is. This is a plastic pipe system, so we're connected to a tracer wire with our red lead. Red lead always goes to the conductor. So once this is set up, we're in a nice straight line, and that's what you want to do. You want to have this transmitter, the ground stake, all in a line, and it must be at least 90 degrees away from our targeted line. Basically goes out to that blue valve right there, and then at that valve it splits and goes one direction, then continues and splits and goes in the other direction. The PL2000 will always default to 27 kilohertz. That's the high frequency on this unit. If you want to choose one of the other frequencies, you have 8 kilohertz to choose from, and you have 0.5 kilohertz. The water industry uses 27 kilohertz a lot and 8 kilohertz. Very seldom will they use the 0.5. The higher the frequency, the less distance it will travel and the greater chance of bleed off. But in this case, the water industry, when we're talking about cast iron pipes, they have gaskets in between them, and they need that higher frequency to jump from one pipe to the other, and low frequency won't travel very far at all. So, but in this scenario here, we are on a tracer wire system. We're in our direct connect mode. We'd have use of all 3 of our frequencies, 27, 8, and 0.5 kilohertz. In this scenario, 0.5 would travel the farthest, could travel up to a mile, maybe 2 miles. 8 kilohertz would travel the second farthest, on a good conductor, and maybe would get us 3/4 of a mile. Then if we decided 27 kilohertz was what we wanted, our high frequency, that might get us 1/3 of a mile, just to give you a little bit of comparison on the different frequencies. So always defaults to 27 kilohertz. The other thing that it defaults to is it always defaults to the indirect mode, and right now we are in a direct connect mode. So we have to hit the IND/DIR button once, and then on our display it will show DIR. That's when we know we're in the right proper setup. We can locate this in 27 kilohertz just to show you how things go. And because this is a tracer wire system, most of our locating can be done in a very small area. We've got two buttons here, one to increase the wattage and one to decrease the wattage. It always defaults to about 2.5 watts. Most locates can be done around 1 watt, and that way by lowering the wattage will help save batteries and give you longer battery life. We have our on-off button, real simple. Then we have our frequency button. Right now we're in 8 kilohertz. If I select the frequency, I can go down to 0.5. That's still an active frequency, one that we can apply down the line. If I hit it again, it'll go to our radio frequency, which is a passive frequency, just something that's looking for something that's naturally occurring. Then we can go to our 50-60 hertz. That's looking for live power cables or the cathodic protection that's on steel gas mains. And if we hit it again, then it just went back to the 50-60 hertz. And if I hit it again, it goes to 27 kilohertz. And then hit it again, we're back on our 8, which our transmitter is now transmitting. So at 26 sensitivity, it tells you what frequency you're in up here. Sensitivity is 26. That number goes from 1 to 40. So when you get close to 40, it's time to find a different hookup point if you can. Otherwise, you may have to try a different method of locating. But 26 is a really good number. This number right here, the 0, now we're in the 40s. That number is basically the percentage of the bar graph that it is. So you can either look at the number or you can watch the bar graph. So once I have an idea where that main is, I want to turn this unit on. And what it'll do is it'll get me really close as far as the sensitivity or the gain is. Right now it's centered, it's about 80% of the gain, and it's perfect. All I'd have to do is turn around and start locating the other direction. But if I didn't know where the main was and I came out here and just say I thought the main was over here, when I turn the unit on, it's going to search for that signal, that 27 kilohertz, and it's not finding it. So it's going to raise the sensitivity way up, and it actually gives me a gain error, and that tells me that it's not finding anything over here. It was screaming at me when I turned it on, so it didn't actually. But I know I'm directly over the top of the main. It's going up to the height. It doesn't reach its highest point, but it comes to a point where I know there's something here. Now what I want to do is I want to do a complete sweep. I know I've got something here, but I don't know if there's another main or something else up here. So I'm going to, without changing the sensitivity, I'm just going to walk straight like this. Now I did get a little bit of a signal right here, but not near as high as it is over there. So mentally I would maybe make a note of this. And then it dies off. So now I've got two choices. I've got a good strong signal here, and I've got a weak signal over there. If I wanted to, I could switch and go to 8 kilohertz, because 8 kilohertz is usually a good strong signal and it bleeds off less. So one of these is a bleed off. I'm guessing that one's a bleed off. If I want to come over here, hit the frequency button. I just hit it once and I went to 8 kilohertz. So now I'm going to do the same thing, come back over here. Now I have to select 8 kilohertz on here. When I do that, it's going to start searching. So as I move from one side to where the cable isn't to where it is. And when I move to the other side, it starts dropping off and the number goes down. Gives me a real nice signal right there. I'm going to see if I get any signal over here. Still gives me a signal, but it's getting weaker. So I'm guessing there's probably some telephone lines that I'm bleeding off on. But it's not giving me anything near what this signal is. With this PL2000, this is the proper way of moving your arm, moving it back and forth. You don't want to do this. You don't want to flick it like this. That won't get you an accurate locate. So you follow it out. Now my signal's getting real strong here, so I gotta hit the down arrow or lower my sensitivity. And it actually makes a turn. I go up. I lose my signal up here. It turns on me. And I can pick it up and it gives me a nice strong signal. Now that I'm past this corner, about 10 feet, I may want to go out about 5 more feet before I check the depth. Set the unit on the ground and hit my depth button. Searching. Okay, it says 68 inches. Depth button is right here. This is the peak null button. If I hit that once, it's going to go to null. Null is not recommended. It gave me a... But what it does is it shows you a stick guy and a pipe. So right now it's saying that I'm on the right side of the pipe. If I move it to the other side, then the guy moves to the other side. But null can actually cause some inaccuracies when it comes to locating near hookup points, near paralleling cables, and definitely around 90-degree turns. So we do have a distance mode on the receiver. The distance mode, basically, we were at 26 for a sensitivity a second ago. It dropped it down to 13 just by hitting that button. What that does is it makes our sensors that much more sensitive, and if we needed to make our locate longer than what we were able to for like survey purposes, not something that somebody's going to be digging on our marks. Then we also have a SON mode, which will show you how to locate some SONs in another section. But when in doubt, use peak. It always defaults to peak, and that's going to be your most accurate way of locating. The only other buttons that we have on are over here. This button will allow the backlighting to come on, so if you have to do any locating in the dark, you can use that button. And then this is your volume control on your receiver. Three different settings, and if you're in a real high traffic area, there is a headphone connection that you can plug in a headphone and tune out all the outside noise. The unit also runs on 6 AA batteries, and you'll get about 20 hours of use out of one set of batteries. In this section, we're going to show you how to general induce or induce a signal onto a conductor with the use of a transmitter. And with that, we don't plug anything into it. We don't use our red and black leads. We don't use our 4-inch inductive clamp. All we do is we turn the unit on. If we know where there's a conductor under the ground, we try and set it as close to above the ground, above that utility as we can. It'll induce a signal out the ground. Hopefully it'll attach some of that frequency onto that conductor. Then we'll search for that frequency with the receiver. The only problem is we must be at least 20 feet apart before we start searching for that, because this is putting out a signal in all directions, actually going up above, going down below, and it's spreading out as it gets deeper. So we can use two frequencies on the PL2000. We can use the 8 kilohertz or we could use the 27 kilohertz. But the higher the frequency, the better it is for inducing purposes. So we're going to use 27 kilohertz on this PL2000. If we were using the PL1500 high, the 83 kilohertz would be even a better frequency to induce because it's a little bit higher than 27. If you're using the low, which is the 8 kilohertz, which this model has as well, you can induce with it, just that it has to be a little bit bigger object for it to absorb more of that frequency and for it to travel down. But it definitely can be done. So what we're going to do is Greg is going to walk out 20 feet, set the transmitter down, and we're pretty sure we've got a power cable running right through here, really close. So he's going to set it down like this. We'll turn the unit on. It defaults to 27 kilohertz, and it always defaults to the indirect. So we don't have to hit the indirect button this time because it already says IND in the display. The only other thing that we might want to do if we had to do a longer locate is we may want to increase the wattage to the full bar strength. So once the transmitter is set up, then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this and I'm going to turn it on. Doesn't matter if it's like this or like this when I turn it on, but if I turn it on like this, it's not going to give me any signal at all, and it'll probably shoot up to 40. So I don't want to be locating like this when I turn it on. I always want to be matching up like my pipes are going in this direction. So what it did, then all I do is I make a sweep. Now I'm picking up the building a little bit there, but if I turn it up and I make my sweep, you can hear it right there is a real strong signal, and then it gets real weak. So real strong, real weak. So it tells me right in here, I'm going to turn it down just a little bit. Going to go back and forth a couple of times, and I'd be able to pinpoint exactly right where this is. And I can turn around and it looks like the transmitter might be about 6 inches off. So if you would move it a little bit more, it actually made the sound go up a little bit higher. So now I know the transmitter is directly above that power cable, and I can locate this real accurately. Now, I don't want to walk towards the transmitter. When I do, it gives me really strange noises and sounds, which doesn't allow me to locate accurately. So I'm about 20 feet away from the transmitter right now, and I can move it back and forth, and it gives me a real nice signal. If I wanted to check depth, I pinpoint, set it down, and press depth. Now depth in this isn't necessarily always going to give you a depth reading. If it's a nice strong signal, it may give you a reading, but it's not going to give you, if it doesn't read a real strong signal, it may give you a false reading or no reading at all. When you're in the induction mode, are not anywhere near as accurate as if you were doing a direct connect. And in this case, it showed 101 inches, and I don't believe that this cable is probably more like 3 feet, so probably closer to 36. The less hookup points you have, the more likely you are to use this type of scenario. But there is another system you can do. If you didn't know where a conductor was, you could actually do a 2-person sweep. So what we're going to have Greg do is pick the unit up. Okay, so now I'm at excessive sensitivity, so I have to back down. But now I know I'm getting really close, but we know there's something there, so now we're just going to continue. And now the signal drops off. So it doesn't appear that there's anything else in the ground, no conductors anyway, just what we have over there. So if we walk back, There's the rise. Now I know I've got something right here, and then Greg could set the unit back down on the ground, and then I center it, and then I would walk away from my transmitter and just walk, and as I'm walking away I'm going to have to turn my gain up because I'll lose signal to the ground. In induction we don't get a real long signal. If we can get a couple hundred yards, that's doing pretty well. So, but induction is super easy to use. If there's a conductor in the ground and you have a general idea where it is, very easy to set the transmitter down, put the receiver, pull the receiver out, locate 20 feet away from where the transmitter is, start searching for that signal. But if there's two steel lines, you're going to probably get a signal on both, and you're not going to know which is a water line and which is a gas line when maybe you're just trying to find the water line. So that's one disadvantage, is you won't be able to identify what your conductor is because you're not directly connected to it, or you're not using a clamp to clamp around it. Alright, in this section we're going to show you using the PL2000 how to use the 4-inch inductive clamp to get a signal onto a cable TV line. You can use this method for telephone lines, for cable TV, for electric. It's a very simple, easy way of getting a signal onto something that's smaller than the diameter of this clamp. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn the unit on, a transmitter. This unit always defaults to 27 kilohertz, and it always defaults to indirect mode. We have to make sure that this is a direct connect method, so we have to hit that DIR button and make sure it says direct on it. It doesn't really matter, we can leave our wattage about the same. If you want, you can reduce it a notch or two. We're just going to be doing a real short locate, so we don't need a lot of power. It helps reduce battery usage. Once again, batteries, it's D-cell batteries in the transmitter. There's actually 8 of them in here, same as the transmitter of the PL1500 high and low. So once we have the power button on, we've got the direct button pushed. We're going to stay in 27 kilohertz. So the only thing I don't want to do is I don't want this right next to where we're going to be hooked up at. And just from previous experiences, take this, clamp right around it, and that's the key, is you want to make sure that this isn't like that by any reason, or if it would happen to get caught in there, you want to make sure that the connections on the tips make a connection that has to be completely across the conductor, and that it clamps. You can hear the two metals touching each other. You have to have those touching. And I'm going to turn the unit on. This unit also defaults to 27 kilohertz, so it's going to be searching for that signal that's being applied via the 4-inch clamp. So I must have been really close to where that line is, because it looks like right here is where she peeks out. Gives me a nice strong signal. My sensitivity reading is 21. On this model, it goes from 1 to 40, so 21 is a really good sensitivity. I'm not near 40. I can locate right up to where the bed is. It's actually nulling out right in here because the cable's coming up, but it's coming in right like this, right in line. So I will try a depth reading right here. See what we get. Locate it, press it down, hit the depth button. "27 inches" is what it says. So it's okay. In this section, we have the PL1500, and what we're going to do is we're going to show you how to properly hook the transmitter up to your conductor, which we're going to be using a hydrant water system as our targeted line today. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a direct connect. This is the most accurate way of locating, and it applies the majority or much more of the signal to a conductor than any other method of locating. So the first thing we want to do is we want to connect our red and black leads into the transmitter. We're going to set that down. We're going to grab our black lead, connect it to our ground stake, and then I'm going to connect our red lead. In this case, this is a plastic water line, so there's a tracer wire here, so I'm just going to connect to our tracer wire. And as you can tell, our ground stake is our transmitter, our ground stake, and our line, our leads are in a nice straight line. And our ground stake is approximately 10 feet away from where our conductor is, or in this case, the water line. So my knowledge is that the water line is going to go out in that direction, and then it's going to tee off. So that's why we want our system back here, so that we're completely away. These leads are like cables laying on top of the ground. If we use our receiver and we get too close to these leads, we can pick them up and give us false readings. So the next thing I'm going to do is, well, now that I got everything set up properly, I'm going to turn the transmitter on. It shows 83 kilohertz. Now it says IND, or indirect. There's actually an IND/DIR button here. You have to hit that button once, and then it'll show DIR in the display. That's what we have. We have a direct connect, so we want to make sure that we have that. Now, for most locates, especially a tracer wire lead target like this, we can actually lower the wattage of the transmitter. It's going to be a very easy signal to get onto this tracer wire system, and it will travel a very long distance. With that set up, all I have to do now is grab my receiver, and what it's doing is that when it turned on, it's already transmitting an 83 kilohertz. This is looking for that frequency that's being transmitted down that tracer wire, and by standing over the top of it, or near where I think that is, it will self-center itself on the bar graph and make it much easier for me to find this pipe. If I decided to turn it on way over here, now I turn it on, it's going to be searching and searching, and now it's basically telling me that it's not picking anything up over here, but as I walk down this way, now I have to hit the auto sensitivity, and now I can pick it up real easily. So once I find it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another sweep. I'm going to make what we call a complete sweep, and just go all the way up here. That signal is very weak. It got weaker as I came this direction, so I know the water main isn't over here. I walk back. Basically right here is where I get my strongest signal. So without doing any adjustments, I'm going to continue to make my sweep over here. I didn't get any reading over here at all. So the only reading I got was directly over the top of the water line. Just by moving it back and forth, it allows me to know exactly where that water line is. What you're seeing on here is max means it's in the 83 kilohertz mode. Sensitivity of 42. That sensitivity number goes from 1 to 75. So 75 being the highest sensitivity, 1 being the lowest. Brings it up, reaches its highest point, and then drops off. Rises up, drops off. So one thing I don't want to see people do is I don't want to see them swinging the locator like this. This is a wrist action. Then if we wanted to check depth with this locator, all we do is pinpoint, Find exactly where that cable is. Hold it still. Press the depth button. At this point, it's 55 inches deep.